I think he just transforms a servant into a horse and then rides on them.
Oh.
He has the ability to be like this mighty beast who can run fast, but he goes like, no, be a horse for me.
I mean,
You're listening to Getting Fae'd. We,
Lea
Meike.
and Lukas are reading ACOTAR Thorns and Roses for the very first time. Today we are discussing chapters 9 and 10. Get Fae'd with us!
Woo!
So, chapters 9 and 10. I feel like this is going to be an interesting episode, because for, I think, the first time ever, we actually end this episode on a really fun and unexpected cliffhanger.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing.
For the end of this episode.
Spoiler.
Stay tuned. We will talk about that in 80 minutes or so. Before going into today's episode, I had a thought. I think I figured out why Sarah J. Maas tends to choose such atrocious writings for her characters' names. I've been wondering, why is it Feyre if there's an E in the end? And do you know these Instagram videos where some influencers tend to pronounce words wrong on purpose just to create some discussions in the comments and create some hate commentary? Maybe Feyre is just the Tezati Zaikai of this book. Maybe that's what she wants. She wants the internet to fight about these names. And I mean, that's exactly what we did.
Do you think it's working then?
I think so, yeah.
Or do you think
Good marketing.
Do you think she maybe wants to give her readers the option to find your own meaning in these names? Maybe not.
No,
Maybe not.
I think it's marketing.
But it's not so extreme in this book.
No, you said in episode 0 that it's going to be worse, or that it is worse in her other books, but not yet. I mean, we haven't met Rusant yet in this book.
Maybe he is from a different book series. Who knows?
I have encountered Rusant already. So I'm fairly certain he's part of this book at some point. Maybe not this book, but this series.
Well,
Well.
we
Well.
expectantly await him.
But
Maybe
yeah.
he's an asshole and we're just hyping up him just based on a name.
Yeah, it's just a funny name. But the first book in the Throne of Glass series, it ends with a pronunciation guide for all the names. So she has some very normal names like Dorian.
Dorian.
Yes.
Yeah, or
like Dorian
Elaine or
Gray.
Nestor.
Woo. But then she has names like Nehemia and
Nehemia
Ashevere, Galanthius and stuff like that.
Okay,
so.
I think I probably need a pronunciation guide.
Yeah.
Pronunciation guide.
Do you think she'd be gatekeeping the pronunciations then?
Maybe.
I noticed that when I started reading books and then giving you book reports you didn't ask for. That's when I noticed I don't know how to say most of the names.
So shall we get into the meat?
Let's do it.
Into these juicy chapters. Last chapter, Feyre made a plan to convince Lucien, of all people, to be her ally in convincing Tamlin to try and find a loophole in the treaty to let her go. And chapter 9 starts with Feyre wanting to find Lucien alone, and she finds out that he's at the stables right now preparing to leave for the patrol of the southern woods. And for a moment there I was so hyped that maybe we will see the wall in this chapter.
Same.
Spoiler, we don't. So on her way to the stables, Feyre's once again interrupted by our favorite character Tamlin, who cannot take no for an answer.
He's just a lurking creep.
Do you think he's watching her, like from a window, and then he sees her walking? Or did he plant a GPS tracker in her skin while she was asleep?
I feel like he's not watching her like every move, but I feel like he's definitely having an eye out for her so he can spend the most time with her as possible.
Yeah, I feel like the servants have to report to him where she is at any time of the day. Yeah, and Meike, you said he's lurking, but he's also creeping and sneaking, because Feyre didn't even hear him coming, like on the gravel. She says it must be the fairy stealth. I mean, Tamlin is a shapeshifter, and I don't think we know that he can just shapeshift into his one feline wolf elk form. So maybe he just shapeshifted into a bird and flew up to her and then shapeshifted back into his fae form. And that's why she didn't hear him coming.
But just imagine that, this shapeshifting, if he was a bird, without any sound, that would be so creepy. Like if I imagine it in some form of movie adaptation or something, I think I would need some sort of sound accompanying that for me. Not like a
ruffling of feathers.
Yeah,
and
more
then,
like that.
I don't know, clothing
Yeah.
sounds, and then he appears.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
whoosh or something.
Whoosh! Yeah, but we don't get that. Tamlin is just stealthy as fuck. So Tamlin says his morning work was postponed
Sure.
and he has some time to spend with Feyre.
He sounds like a CEO. When he said that, I imagined him wearing a suit, but like the top button is open and maybe his tie is just loosely thrown around his neck, and he's like, oh, my morning work was postponed. I don't have a meeting until 1:30. We can hang out and have lunch.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that because Tamlin also wears his casual outfit.
Ooh. Now that we're talking about it, I am getting some sort of Christian Grey vibes, which is
Yeah, I
very
just thought that.
unappealing.
Do you think Tamlin has a sex dungeon?
Maybe.
I'm sure he has a dungeon. And I mean, you can do a lot of things in a dungeon.
Multi-use dungeon.
Swiss knife dungeon.
So we learn that Tamlin is tanned.
Which surprised me.
Same.
I thought, I don't know, in my mind, elves and fairies as such are maybe creatures untouched by their surrounding. Like they don't get sunburned when they're out in the sun, and they probably can't be affected by, I don't know, poison stuff in the air or something, or sickness. And for him to be tanned means like stuff affects his skin. So I'm wondering, what does he look like under that mask?
Yeah, I wondered that too. Maybe it's just 50-year-old rotten white flesh.
On the other hand, I feel like you're approaching this way too scientifically.
Yes.
I just feel like Sarah J. Maas goes, ooh, tan skin is so hot. So all my fairies have tan skin.
Yeah, you have to remember this is a soft magic system, and Sarah J. Maas can do whatever the fuck she wants.
Which
and
is
we
fair.
love that.
It's her book series.
So Feyre and Tamlin have this back and forth where Feyre declines his offer to spend time with her over and over again, and Tamlin cannot take no for an answer because he's an asshole.
Yes. I felt like the way Feyre describes him as that effort to be accommodating even when every word seemed to pain him. I mean, this is obviously influenced by Feyre, but what is his deal? Either leave her alone if you don't like her or be genuinely kind. Like, what is going on with you?
I mean, we thought that maybe he has like an evil master plan. And maybe that's why he has to be accommodating. But then he just seems so genuinely pissed when she doesn't accept his offer. And that kind of feels like just jealousy, or I don't know. I feel like the way Feyre talks about him in a monologue is like you would talk about an abusive boyfriend or something like that.
Yeah.
Like when he finally decides to leave, the quote in the book is, Tamlin clenched his fists as if fighting against the claws, itching to burst out. And that
yeah.
sounds like a red flag.
Yeah, I feel like the whole time she fears that he might become violent and attack her.
She is very mean to him, though. I find it interesting. Like,
Also,
she talks.
it's her fault.
No, I don't mean it's her fault, but she acts like she's scared, but then she's mean to his face. I feel like maybe, especially because she wants to get out of this treaty thing, you would think maybe she tries to play nice and be like, okay, let's have you show me the garden or stuff. But she's like, nah, I don't like you. You're annoying, to his face. And that's funny. I mean, she stands her ground. She's like, you kidnapped me and I'm not here for it.
But I feel like that tracks with her character. I don't think she has very good people skills.
Yeah.
Since she spent her whole life just hunting.
And she doesn't appear
surviving.
very submissive.
No.
She's just
Yeah.
the leader.
But I feel like that's a good thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So after Tamlin finally leaves, Feyre makes her way to the stables, where all the stable boys were horse masks. And that's just a sad image. Like, imagine you go to one party, and then you have to look like BoJack Horseman for the rest of eternity.
It looks so incredibly stupid in my mind.
Do you think they are like life-size horse masks? Where they actually have like a very long mouth, because that feels very impractical.
I think the image that I have in my head is not what Sarah J. Maas had in her head, because I can only think of these rubber masks of horse heads that you can wear on your face, which is the most uncomfortable thing I could think of.
It's hard to imagine because mostly masks are like 2D images of something. But a horse has a very distinct long face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
to
I
show
wondered
that
if
in
this is long.
2D is kind of hard. So I don't know what that mask could
they
look like.
cannot sleep on their belly. Also, what did the horses think when when after the party they came into work wearing these masks
That's
and just
insane.
didn't take them off? They were like, "Bro, that's insensitive." So Feyre finds Lucien in the stables. Mm-hmm. Is it Lucien or Lucien?
I say you can decide whatever you feel like.
Okay, this is hard. This is too much responsibility. I feel like it's Lucien.
I feel so too.
Like Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah, though Lucien kind of feels cooler.
Lucien.
Lucien.
Maybe it's also with a French touch, Lucien.
Only one of them can be French.
It feels like this whole court thing feels so Versailles-like, so it could be Ruizon and Lucien.
Tamlin.
Yeah, but I read it as Lucien
Yeah.
too.
So to you listeners at home, just reach out to us at GettingFadePod on Instagram and tell us how would you pronounce Lucien.
Send us a voice memo.
So Lucien says, "I'm to patrol the southern woods today." And then Lucien invites her to come along on a hunt because he says he wants to see her hunting skills. Like, what are these famed skills that brought down his friend?
Yeah, I felt like Feyre had this whole plan, but then she has to do nothing to enact this plan because Lucien just invites her anyway, immediately.
She wonders why in this moment, and I thought maybe that's the start of some Feyre-Lucien romance.
Sizzling romance.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but it also makes her quite a passive protagonist. I mean, except for killing Andros, she has done nothing yet. I mean, she has all these thoughts about what she wants to do, but she never gets to it because it happens anyways, or she doesn't
we
do
didn't get a
anything.
story she
Yeah.
made up for him to take her with him, or her being very playful and maybe tricking
Coy.
him into thinking she cares about him or something. No, he just invites her because apparently he's very good at reading her and he already knows what her plan is. But it's kind of sad. Feyre doesn't get to do anything.
Yeah,
You're right.
I feel like the book does not imply that she does nothing, especially with the first person narration. We get to witness all her plans and her thinking and her thoughts about what this might mean, what the other people do. But in fact, she doesn't really do anything and just reacts for most of the time.
When he invited her to go for a hunt, I was wondering, is he going on a patrol or is he going on a hunt?
Yeah,
'Cause I
that's
feel
what
like
I was
a hunt
wondering.
and a patrol are two very different things.
That's
Maybe
true.
he's like, "I'm going on a patrol and you can join me and hunt at the same time."
I feel like Lucien is not very, I don't know if organized is the right word, but not very set in his plans. He's just like, I'm going there. Let's just do something.
Going
I'm
with
a
the flow.
rogue boy.
It is his first shift of patrolling the woods, isn't it?
True.
Yeah.
I mean, he
yeah.
says that was Antras, the wolf's shift.
Yeah, and at first I thought maybe he just doesn't take it serious, but then he says it's an honor that he gets to take the shift of his dead friend. So it feels like it's important to him. But then again, he doesn't really do any patrolling. He just rides with Feyre and is like, haven't seen any game yet, huh?
On the other hand, I feel like that's patrolling. You ride through your area and check if there's something wrong there.
That's true, but for a hunt, you would have to
Yes,
follow
true.
your prey and stuff.
And that's the thing. Feyre thinks about that and goes like, I can't hunt from a horse.
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
sneak and follow my prey. And
I love
Lucien
how
is-
she doesn't say that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this conversation, I think she holds back a little and tries to get on Lucien's good side and doesn't want to be too offensive.
Which you can't say for him. I don't know
An
if it's
asshole.
offensive, but he makes fun of her quite a lot.
Yeah.
He's mean.
He calls her a Fae killer, which doesn't sound like an insult coming from him. He's just more like, you're a Fae killer. You're a measly human and you managed to kill one fairy and now you're here. Ha ha. That's one thing I really don't like about this book. I feel like Sarah J. Maas is really good at writing grief in her other stories. And I just want to see that here. I want to see them mourn their dead friend. I want to see a funeral maybe. Or I don't know, just a ceremony in his honor or something, and them talking about what he meant to them, because as of now, we don't really know anything about this guy,
That's true.
except that he was there and that he had a mission, and Feyre killed him.
Yeah. So, but going back to the whole Lucien is an asshole thing, that's actually kind of why I like him more than Tamlin.
Same.
Because
Same.
he's an asshole and he doesn't try to hide that. Like, he's mean to Feyre and he's just straightforward. But Tamlin tries to play as so nice and so generous while trying to hide his toxic, patronizing asshole behavior.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like makes him more dangerous and more unlikable.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Tamlin has his pretentious, insincere friendliness, but Lucien is just more approachable, I feel like, because he uses like everyday language and he snorts and curses, and that just makes him more approachable.
Yeah.
So he seems less friendly, but more likable.
Yeah. So they go hunting or patrolling or both at the same time. And what I found interesting, Feyre rides on a white mare.
Yes.
She also rode on a white mare to Prithian, but it doesn't say if it's the same white mare. And I thought that was strange that it wasn't even mentioned.
Yeah, especially because she seems to have a good eye for animals, as we have established.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Lucien rides on a black horse, a black gelding. Do you know what a gelding is?
I don't know what that is.
It's a castrated stallion.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
I do know what that is,
Good.
but I don't know anything about horses.
I just wrote down symbolism when she rides on a white horse and he rides on a black horse, and ooh, he's such a bad
Castrated
boy.
horse.
That's another symbolism there.
What do you think is Tamlin's horse? What would he ride on?
Himself.
Doesn't need a horse.
Because he is self-centered.
I think he just transforms a servant into a horse and then rides on them.
Oh.
He has the ability to be like this mighty beast who can run fast, but he goes like, no, be a horse for me.
I mean, the horse she rides to the mansion. She says that it like obeys Tamlin and acts
my
like it
God.
understands him. Maybe
Oh,
that was
damn.
Alice.
I feel like Tamlin does that a lot with his abilities. He's like, I want a dancing monkey for dinner. Tutu, you're my dancing monkey now.
For dinner to eat or for entertainment?
For entertainment.
But we haven't talked about Tamlin's ability to shift others yet on this podcast.
That's something we
so
learn later. Spoiler alert.
Feyre is also very relatable in a scene because she rides on her horse and gets distracted by beautiful flowers and nice bushes and whatnot. And I kind of related to that because she's like, oh, that's unnecessary. I don't need to think about this. Oh, that's not useful information. And I'm like that when I read sometimes.
Okay.
Because I read a scene and then in my mind it plays out. Like she describes, I don't know, the forest, and then I start thinking about forests, and then I start thinking about what I know about forest, and then I wonder why I know that, and then I think about an animal, and then I think about foxes, and then I think about Robin Hood, and then I remember how I wanted to marry him, and then I'm like noticing I already skipped 4 pages without reading them, and I have to
Yeah,
go
same.
back.
I can relate to that, yes.
And I kind of felt like Farah in that moment. She was like, oh, beautiful flower. Oops, we've been riding for an hour.
Yeah, but that's also her artsy side coming through again. The next part of this chapter is just them being awkward. And that's fun. I expected plot and suspense, and I got
Awkwardness.
awkward sitcom shenanigans. And I'm here for it. Lucien says, well, you certainly have the quiet part of hunting down.
Jokester.
I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid I like him too.
I'm always torn between, I hate him, he's such an asshole, and then I'm like, oh, damn, I like him again. Why am I like this?
Because he's wearing a fox mask.
He's kind of casual cool.
Yeah, he's just funny. You know,
Yeah, that's
he
true.
makes
Yeah.
all the awkwardness kind of fun because he's not mean to us. He's just mean to a character that we don't really feel a lot for.
I feel like he's very real.
Yeah, he just says what he thinks. And that's a lot better than Tamlin.
Yeah. So they're on their fun little awkward hunting/patrolling trip. Lucien is like, why aren't you hunting? We passed so many squirrels. This fucking word. Squirrels. And birds.
Squirrels. Now I can't say it either.
And Feyre makes the valid point that why would she hunt these creatures if they have plenty of food already?
True.
And then we have another awkward exchange. She's like, why do you have to do this patrolling shift? And Lucien's like, well, because you killed my friend who used to do it. And this is followed by awkward silence again.
Ooh.
And I just wrote down, big oof.
Big oof. True.
Yeah, and then we get the moment where, for the first time, Feyre is sorry for this and actually means that. So I just hope to see a slow change in her character.
I feel like we might have skipped over a thing because Lucien uses a nickname for Tamlin. He calls him
Tam.
Tam. And it's kind of cute, I think.
Yeah. I want to know more about their relationship. Like, what is Tam to Lucien? Is he his, like, master? Or are they friends? Or are they just nobility forced to kind of work together? Or are they lovers?
Maybe they feel differently about their relationship to each other.
Maybe.
I mean, that happens between people, that someone views you as your best friend and you are like, I know you, I guess.
Yeah, like Tamlin and Feyre. Tamlin really wants her to
true.
like him.
Yeah.
Please be my best friend, Feyre.
I didn't kill you. I did the bare minimum. Now love me.
Yes.
He rings her doorbell being like, can Feyre come out and play?
I think it would be more like, you come out to play with me now or I kill your whole family.
Yeah.
And she's like, I guess.
No, she's like, I don't like you. I'd rather go out and play with Lucien.
Yeah. The next part of this chapter was something that confused me a bit because, like, Lucien and Feyre go back and forth, and at one point, Lucien insults her, and then Feyre takes offense to that, and Lucien apologizes. And then in a monologue, she's like, I might have called him a liar for that apology had I not known he couldn't lie. And then I wondered, why would you still think that they can't lie? Like, every belief you had has been proven wrong in these past 2 days. Like, what makes you think that they can't lie? I don't really get it.
I also don't know if we should just believe her and take this as a fact, because if it were written in the third person, I think it would be easier to just write it down and accept it as a fact. But because it just comes from her and we never get any indication from the Fae that they actually cannot lie, we rather get the opposite when Lucien uses irony and such. So I'm like, I want to believe you to understand this world, but I'm not sure if I can.
Yeah, maybe it's just, I don't want to say poor writing, I don't want to throw shade on Sarah J. Maas, but if it just prepares for a big plot twist where Feyre's like, oh, they lied to me, but I thought they can't lie, then that's a bit cheap almost.
Yeah, I feel that would be kind of weak.
I think she just wants to believe it really badly because it's the only thing that means some kind of protection for her, but like for all humanity, kind of.
True.
Because they only live because Fae promised to not like enslave them and fight them. So I think being in this world that's so dangerous to her, she has to hold on to like at least this one belief, because if that wasn't true, she couldn't do anything. She probably couldn't even eat or stuff, you know? I think she has to survive and like eat and drink, and him telling her that it's safe to eat and drink at least kind of takes away some of the maybe danger and fear that comes with it.
Yeah.
Then we get to the part that we talked about earlier, where her great plan to convince Lucien to help her fails immediately.
Good job.
Yeah, so apparently Lucien's very good at reading people because lays out her plan down to every detail, which is pretty fun. He says exactly what she wants to do, and then she's like, I wouldn't reveal my hand. Not yet. And I'm like, too late?
True.
So Lucien says that there's no loophole and that there's no point in trying to convince Tam because there is no loophole, and also if Lucien had his way, she'd be gone already. Or rather, if he had his way, she would have been gutted immediately.
Friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes this ride a bit more dangerous. I mean, being with someone who openly confirms that if he had his way, you'd be dead. Is kind of, that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Because he's so funny and makes fun of her in even almost a friendly way. I mean, he makes fun of Tamlin a lot, and they seem to be some kind of friends. We don't know. But him making so much fun of her and being snarky could feel friendly. Like, oh, I'm just making fun of you because at some point we're going to be friends. But he's also like, well, I want to kill you.
But that's also what I like about him, kind of. That he's just so genuinely straightforward, and he says, yeah, I would want to kill you, but I can't because Tam told me not to.
Do you think he still wants to kill her?
I don't think he would really want to do it now. I think maybe he starts liking her a bit.
Yeah, I mean, what happens just a little bit later, he could easily have shoved her to her death.
True.
Like, oops,
Yeah.
accidentally she died in the forest. But he helped her.
But I also feel like right now he still respects Tamlin too much to act against him. I don't think it's just, he's more powerful than me. I feel there's somewhat deep respect there.
And that's why I feel so confident in my theory. I think that would make for a good story if Tamlin is like, oh, I'm evil, and then Lucien has to overcome his respect for him and act against him.
Yeah, I see that too.
To do it for the greater good or something like that.
Yeah.
And then their age-old bromance is broken.
Because of a woman.
You could also think maybe Lucien feels that he's in some kind of debt to Tamlin because he gave him the eye.
True.
After he said something he shouldn't have said.
Question is
mysterious.
Yeah. So in this next part of the chapter, we get a lot of lore dropped.
Once again.
I didn't really notice that when I read it. I think it's done well again. And then I took note of all the lore dropped, and I got like 2.5 pages in my notebook of just lore or vague lore that we think might be a thing that is alluded to in this next part. So I just made a bullet point list, and I thought we can go through it.
Okay.
Let's go.
I'm just gonna do a little presentation here.
Let's go.
We learn that only Tam can shapeshift, and he can also choose to transform other Fae if he wants to, if need be. And that's also what he did to Andros before he sent him over the border, so he wouldn't be recognized as a fairy.
Apparently he didn't do it well enough because he was still recognized as otherworldly.
I don't think so. I mean, Feyre killed him and was like, nah, that was a wolf.
But she isn't sure.
That's true.
But yeah, I felt that was quite a revelation to read that he's the only one who can do it.
Yeah, interesting. We get the gist that Tam is a very powerful fucker. And then there's another moment where Feyre mentions the court, and there's this weird interaction where Lucien asks very quickly, how do you know about the court? As if he meant something else.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know what he might have meant. Do you have any idea?
I didn't really know what to make of it
Meike
either.
is currently frowning and searching in her book.
What do you mean?
She asks about Tamlin's household and
Yes.
is like, so why aren't there any other people in this court? And then Lucien goes, how do you know about the court? And I think her reaction is he must be talking about something else, but she ignores it, but puts it in some part of her brain to
She tucks
think
the
about.
information away.
Yeah, so apparently it's not just some form of a royal court, but something else. And I was like, are there any other meanings for court? And I thought, maybe it's some sort of training area, like in a sport meaning of court, but I don't really think that. But it's the only other idea that I had.
I mean, isn't the court also where a judge resides and
True, yeah.
where you get sent to prison? So maybe that's something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we have enough information to really make anything of that. That was just weird.
There's so much we still don't know.
How intriguing. Yeah, and then there is a her.
Yes.
Some kind of female-coded being that scares Lucien. He's afraid that she might hear him spilling information and that she might monitor him even in this forest. And that's strange.
Yeah.
Who do you think this her is?
Feyre speculates it might be one of the 7 High Lords, maybe a High Lady, but that makes me think it's not that, but something different.
Yeah.
And you told us the story of Tamlin the last time, and about Janet and the Fairy Queen, and maybe Feyre is representing Janet, and maybe this Fairy Queen that has her power over Tamlin is this her.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah. Do you want to hear my wild theory that has no basis in facts?
Go ahead.
I think this her is her mother.
It could still be
Yeah,
her
maybe
mother
her
and-
mom, if she's Fae, is a big fairy queen. But I just wanted to have this on the record if it turns out to be true. And I can go in episode 5 I said that's the case.
Oh, maybe it's Mahogany and she's the big bad.
Yeah.
That would be so funny if Mahogany just returns and is like, I want to tear down all the Fae! Rally with me, mortals!
What we also learn is that when Lucien is asked about where the blight came from, he makes a remark about it's probably sent from the shitholes of hell.
He says hell,
He
not
says
cauldron.
hell.
I wrote
and
that
that
down
means
too.
in the fairy culture or belief there is a hell. So our theory of the cauldron being fairy hell
Is wrong.
doesn't hold.
Later, I think it's in chapter 10, the cauldron is mentioned again in a different way, not in a hell way.
Lea is on a hell way too high.
Someone says, thank the cauldron, and I feel like that's more thank the Lord than cursing and hell-ish context.
I fear we just have to wait and see. Or wait and read. So anyway, Lucien is old, but not old enough to have been there when the treaty was signed.
He kind
So
of
he's-
takes offense by being called so old.
Yeah. So he's, I guess, somewhere between like 70 and 400 years old. Yeah, and then Feyre finally starts asking some more questions, and she asks how he got his scar. And then he says he didn't keep his mouth shut when he should have. Feyre's mind immediately jumps to Tamlin doing that to him, which again is a huge red flag in their relationship.
True.
But I don't think we have to talk about that now. And Lucien says no, Tamlin wasn't there. But then again, this answer is just some vague, not really a useful answer.
Yeah, but it shows us that Lucien is somewhat insubordinate, and I feel like that fits with Feyre's attitude. I feel like they fit well together if they get along at some point.
Yeah, so I just kind of put the pieces together and thought that maybe she did that to him.
Yeah,
if she's
yeah,
like
this
an
could be.
evil thing, or maybe the Fae Lord or Fae Lady.
But that means he wasn't in some sort of battle and lost it, but there was just someone who's like, you are running your mouth, I'm cutting out
Yeah,
your
some
eye.
punishment. And that would make his defying authority plot when he talks back to Lucien
yeah.
even more fulfilling for us, the reader.
I want this, I need this.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's very snarky with Tamlin already. And him being able to make fun of Tamlin in a way that he is when he like calls him out like, oh, bro, your flirting is getting rusty and stuff like that. It kind of shows us that they have to be some kind of friends. Because apparently in Fae society, it is normal for someone to take someone's eye if they say something they shouldn't have, in quotation marks, because I don't think you should take an eye for anything.
I feel like Lucien sees Tamlin as a good ruler.
Yeah, I think so. So after that conversation about the eye, Feyre asks, so there are fairies who will actually answer any question if you trap them. And I didn't really get that.
Well, he says, anyway, the high fae don't have specific powers the way the lesser fairies do. I don't have a natural born affinity, if that's what you're asking. I don't clean everything inside or lure mortals to watery death or grant you answers to whatever questions you might have if you trap me. So he recalls basically a lot of powers fairies have.
So high fae don't have any power really, but the lesser fairies just are randomly born with one specific power, I guess.
Yes, that's how I understood it.
But I feel like there is something more in there. He says, we just exist to rule. And I was like, okay. So what you're telling me is that you are lame and powerless, and that's why you are the people who rule.
Yep, good society.
That kind of reminded me of essential workers during the pandemic, because the people who do the most important and hardest work for the society are mostly on like the lower end of the food chain. And it's quite tragic. Actually, in our society.
It also doesn't make any sense, especially in this fantasy universe. Like, why do the people who have no magical powers have the most power about everyone else?
Maybe it's just like royalty in our world, how they used to do it, or maybe still do it, where they say, okay, these people are ruling you. They have a God-given right to rule you because our belief says so, but they're not actually different or... I mean, sure, governing a country is work, but
No.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. So there might be in this society some entity that says these are the high fae that rule you, and maybe that is the cauldron.
Then again, the lesser fairies, as he calls them, have powers that kind of seem either useful when used as like a serving quality, like they clean everything inside, or they like grant you wishes, or they have a power that is dangerous apparently to humans. Because, you know, I grant you a wish when you trap me and I lure you to your death. Just sounds, I don't know, something that makes you dangerous to someone who is not used to that kind of world.
But the question is, do they not have any special powers, the high fae, but still all have some kind of magic?
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be interpreted as, oh, I don't have any one specific power, so I have all of them, but I don't think that's the case.
Well, he says Tamlin is the only one who can do shifting, so that sounds like Tamlin having a special ability is special.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, oh, Tamlin is the only one who can only shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Tamlin has a lot of powers. He can, like, bind Feyre's limbs.
Yeah.
But maybe Lucien could do that too. They have to have somewhat control of magic. I feel like they don't have these specific, I lure you, or I can tell all the truths. But yeah, they have to be somewhat more powerful than mortals, because why else would they have defeated the mortals?
I mean, they are immortal.
True.
That is...
Yeah, I
That
was
is a
about to
good
say,
point.
all of them have, like, healing powers at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will see. I
Yes.
think.
We will see. But anyways, there are fairies who grant you a wish if you trap them.
And apparently they're
I
dangerous.
The
They are
Suriel?
the Suriel, but they are old and wicked, and Lucien warns Feyre to not seek them out and go there. So I am certain that Feyre will never visit them and just throws this idea aside and we will not see them.
I mean, it sounds like maybe she could wish for a loophole out of the treaty.
You think? No, I don't think so. I don't think she will go there. I mean, he said it's dangerous, so why? No, I don't think so. So that was my presentation. That was all the lore we kind of learned. Mm-hmm. And
Very nice. You spoke very freely and used...
No pictures. I have one tiny thing to add.
yes,
Because when they talk about this shape-shifting thing, Lucien actually tugs on his mask and can't take it off. And I wondered about that last episode because I thought like maybe they can take it off but then immediately turn into an animal. But no, it's glued on.
yeah,
And that's kind of funny.
sad. Do you think there is actually a blight, or was just some prankster 50 years ago? Just like all the masks were lying around and they put glue on them and they thought, oh no, a magical blight happened.
Maybe that's just the name of the person. Blight.
Blight. Hello, I'm Blight, the court prankster.
It's Blight from Autumn Court.
So yeah, after all that, something happens and we meet, I think, the first truly powerful and interesting villain of this book.
Yes.
I feel like chapter 9 ends very powerfully with Lucien suddenly becoming very serious and you're like, what is happening? And he says,
That's a
look
warning
straight
sign.
ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, if Lucien becomes serious, that's a warning sign.
And
He's
if
like,
he becomes scared.
he's like, look straight ahead and whatever you do not look at it. Do not acknowledge it. And then the last sentence is, and then I felt it.
Pam, pam, pam.
And I was, in that moment, actually very glad that we agreed to read chapters 9 and 10, because I would not have enjoyed stopping there. And then the first sentence in chapter 10 is also pretty strong. My blood froze as a creeping, leeching cold lurched by. So, the Dementors attack.
Wrong book.
I actually had a different Harry Potter association with this being that attacks, and I felt it was very basilisk. On one hand, don't look at it, otherwise you are doomed. And it has this ancient, hollow voice whispering, and it speaks threats of how they're about to kill you, and that's exactly what Harry hears in the pipes. Spoiler for Harry Potter, Chamber of Secrets. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, and that thing says pretty gnarly stuff. I will grind your bones between my claws. I will drink your marrow. I will feast on your flesh. I am what you fear. I am what you dread. Look at me. Look at me. So, not the nicest encounter.
No, quite. It could be scary. I mean, I wasn't scared, like actually scared, but
I mean, you weren't in that situation.
Do
that's
you
true.
guys get scared reading?
No, not usually.
I think a scary scene can have a cool atmosphere or
Yes.
something, and you can transport the character's fear pretty well in books. But I don't recall a scene where I was like, this is scary.
When I was a kid and reading scenes, I never was scared.
I mean, maybe you just read kid-appropriate
no, I
books.
didn't. I mean,
Okay.
sure, kid. Yes, it didn't read any other weird shit. I mean, I read a lot of children's books. That's true. But I've heard people say like they were scared of the Dementors or couldn't go on reading because Voldemort was scary or something. And
Oh, that's actually what happened to me.
You
I think
see?
in like book 4 when, I mean, I was very young when I read that. I think when all the Death Eaters show up, I had to like stop reading for a few weeks because I was so scared.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I don't know, maybe 16? No. That was a joke. I don't know, maybe 6 or something. So this creeping cold just moves through that part of the forest and tries to make her acknowledge it, because I guess that's the only way it can harm her. And she tries to distract herself with thoughts about nice things. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of disappointed, because she thinks about her barn action with Isaac, but she does not lose one thought about Mahogany Tooth.
But I was actually happy that she thought about Isaac.
Yeah, me too.
We love Isaac.
Yeah.
I hope he just comes back. I want an Isaac spin-off book.
Maybe Tamlin kills him because he's jealous.
No.
I can see that. In this household, we love Isaac.
Under this roof.
No, in this household. So Lea actually lives in our attic.
We just keep this statement here, and this is the podcast lore now.
Like a little goblin. The
That's
attic
me.
goblin.
Yeah. So just as Farah is close to not being able to bear it anymore, and she needs to look, the cold vanishes. So, dear cold, just be a little bit more persistent. you could have
If you
gotten
had
your
waited
prey.
5 seconds longer, you could have had her.
So I thought that was a really cool villain. I was really into the scene. I was engaged in the book. And then Lucien says, we call it the Bogge. And that was just the dumbest name I ever heard for a cool villain.
I read it as the Bogge. I tried different pronunciations, like Bog as well, or Bogey, I don't know. But
I want to call it Boogie, like Boogeyman.
I actually tried to Google it without spoiling myself. It did lead me to the Wikipedia page of the Boogeyman.
Yeah, makes
That
sense.
has a lot of different names. So I feel like it might be inspired by that. But it also made me think of the Boggart from Harry Potter, because I was already in the Harry Potter mindset. And I feel like that also fits like this incorporeal being.
That knows your fears.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting choice to give something that's supposed to be very scary a name that's not easily pinpointed. Like to have it something you have to think about and maybe make up even a funny version of the name, like calling it Boogie. Just
Yeah.
kind of takes away, because I think children make fun of the boogeyman nowadays. And are not scared of it, even though they are supposed to feel fear when talking about the boogeyman. So calling it something that could be even pronounced funny is kind of a wild choice.
If you guys were Sarah J. Maas writing this book right now, what would your name choice be?
I don't know if I'd have like a name ready, like Cassandra or something.
I would just call it Bob.
Bob the Hag. But I feel like it is hag-ish. It has this, what is this being from?
Hagrid?
No, this, I think it's Eastern European culture, and it's also in The Witcher. This Baba Yaga. I feel it has Baba Yaga vibes.
The chicken legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I like Booger, because that has this kind of similar vibe, but maybe not with an ER, but AH. Booger.
Booga.
Booger.
The Bundesgartenschau.
I'm just gonna go with Bob. But I like this thing. It makes Prithian dangerous, finally. Because everyone told us that Prithian will be super dangerous for Farah. I mean, Tamlin has been a dick, and Lucien also, but nothing has been super scary yet. I didn't feel like Prithian itself is dangerous. Maybe just the people living
This
there.
is the beginning of the Prithian scare
Yes.
age.
It's something Lucien is afraid of, and that's super cool.
Yes. It's also the same reaction that Feyre has in some way, because
Yeah.
she's like, this was the Prithian I'd expected. So that implies that her thoughts about a lot of what the Fae are right, and just Tamlin and his court are different.
I really want to find out more about this side of Prithian. I hope she goes to the surreal, which also sound like cool, mystical, wicked creatures creeping in Prithian, and then maybe she will meet more monsters or just weird shit happening. That would be cool. So after this whole Bog or Boogie or Booger thing, they ride in silence for a while Feyre has to process this all. And then after that, they have I would say, I guess, cute-ish character moment when Feyre like talks back to him and calls him a prick and thinks, oh, I should literally die for saying that to a high fae, and he's like, yeah, that was cute.
Yeah, I wrote, like, the part ends with a flirt, but it's not a very appealing flirt because Lucien is insulting mortals again.
Yeah.
But in a likable way.
Now it's friendly banter.
But we learned that the Bogge, whatever, is trespassing in these lands and does not just live there.
It slipped through a border, Lucien says. And I wondered what border that might be.
I don't think it's the wall. I think it's borders between courts or something. Or maybe the court is even bigger, and in the court there are like different shires or regions or whatever that have their own borders, and there's like no man's land between them or something where this Bogge resides.
Maybe inside of Springcourt you have the mansion part where people actually live, and then you have a part where wild things roam and they keep them separate because they don't want the monsters in their mansions.
Yes, that's what I meant.
It might be. Or maybe it comes from the mortal world.
It's Mahogany Tuft's true form.
Good thing no one can kill it then. Which is wild.
So, after this cute moment, we skip to dinner with Tam, and he's jealous as fuck.
Yeah.
And it's really funny.
When he awaits them there for dinner, I just heard in my head the song, jealousy.
In that moment, I kind of felt bad for him, just a little bit, because I think that's the biggest fear of every introverted, overthinking person, that someone tells you, oh no, I'd rather be alone, and then they show up with someone else, and you're just like, it's just me. It's just me they didn't want to hang out with. And I think usually that's not the case. When someone tells you, oh no, sorry, I need time for myself, they mean it. But in this case, she didn't, and I kind of felt bad for him.
Yeah.
But just a little. He still sucks.
Just a little, and then immediately I stopped feeling bad for him when he kind of lounges there in his chair and has his claw out and like circles it on his goblet or something. Just
it makes
to
me
be
feel so uncomfortable.
Intimidating and
He is just one big red flag.
Yeah, he has a whole music parade with red flags behind him.
He feels like the abusive boyfriend who like sits on the couch when you come home late, and then he's like, where have you been? Why are you home so late? What did you eat? I hate him. Just talking about him makes me
But he doesn't stay long. Lucien tells him about the Bogge, and then he goes off to hunt him. And then Feyre's like, I thought no one could kill the Bogge. And Lucien's like, Tam is not no one. No, I said that wrong. Apparently, Tam can. Tam can, that's his...
I think that's actually
slogan.
what he says, isn't it?
Tam can.
Tam can. I feel like if Tam was actually like an elected leader, that would be on his election.
Yes, Tam can.
Yes, Tam can. And
Vote
then,
Tam for president.
And then after that, Feyre says something in a inner monologue that kind of scared me. I'm just going to read the quote. The gruff high fae half-heartedly flattering me was capable of killing a thing like the Bogge. And yet he'd served me himself that first night, offered me life rather than death. I'd known he was lethal, that he was a warrior of sorts, but... ... And that kind of reads like Feyre starts liking him in some way. Like, oh, he's so broody and dark, but so powerful. And at the same time, so humble. And I just really don't want this turning into a romance.
Something that I want to unpack again. Before he leaves even, when Lucien tells Tamlin about the Bogge, I wrote down Tamlin versus fork. Because he first folds over this fork, then a little bit later it says he obliterates the fork and the metal groans. And I was just like, what is this fork? Because if you obliterate something, I imagine you're tearing something to pieces. And I'm just imagining him there with his claws out, ripping at this fork. And I mean, yes, it's a dinner fork, not like a cake fork, but it's still arguably kind of small. Ripping a fork to shreds. Like this little cat or something. And then the metal groans. Like when I hear this expression, I imagine like huge metal things, constructions, like container ships.
I think she just wanted it to sound epic. I feel like I have folded spoons on accident before, and either they snap, which just makes like a high ping, or they are just crooked afterwards.
Or maybe it's like in Beauty and the Beast, where all the where all the household objects are alive, and the fork actually groans.
The fork's like, damn it,
My
stop!
back! Oh.
But also, the first time, I mean, I had a lot of thoughts about this tiny section, but when I read it the first time, it says like he folds over the fork, and I imagined like Houdini, that is just does it by magic, and
That's not Houdini, that's Uri Geller.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he does it like Uri Geller maybe, and I don't think it's explicit in the book if he does it with magic or if he does it with pure strength.
He's angry and breaks the fork.
What is he so angry about, you think? Is he angry about something trespassing on his lands? Or
I think he's angry about Fae'd and Lucien hanging out together.
I mean,
Well, I meant, is he angry about something endangering Farah? Is he once again being the abusive boyfriend who goes wild because someone insulted his girl?
I think
Or
that's
is he-
possible. But at this point, I read it as, shit, there's this incredibly dangerous being. I have to deal with it now.
And maybe...
Maybe!
Oh, it's my maybe.
The hands up again?
That means it's theory time.
We need a
Maybe...
jingle.
Maybe he's angry at, say, Autumn Court. Or something like that. Maybe this thing lives there and he thinks it didn't, like, slip through the wall, but maybe the other court sent it there as an aggression.
Yeah.
That's a
Maybe that's
possibility.
why he's and maybe that's why he's and angry. That's why he's maybe and maybe that's why he's angry. That was Conspiracy Corner with Lukas.
I think it's a possibility that the Bogge was sent there actually by a different faction, maybe a different court, because we learn about these other Fae beings that have very specific powers and that they probably have specific tasks in the court or the society. And so maybe if they're Fae that lure humans into their death, then that's what they're supposed to do. And so if you have a Bogge in your court that is this incredibly powerful being that can just kill by being looked at, you can use it as some sort of soldier or assassin or something.
Or maybe it's also like one country building the atomic power plant right at the border of another country, so all the waste just blows over there. So shall we move on then to the big plot twist thingy that ends the chapter?
Yeah, well, while she's worried about Tamlin, she tells us about the moon that is female coded. I mean, in the English language, there's obviously no gender attributed to the moon, I think. But in German there is, and it's masculine. We talked about how the mortal lands might be a matriarchy. So I think Feyre thinking about the moon as female says maybe more about Feyre than about the world, and how she has been brought up and all her surroundings say there are these female things that are grand and powerful. Or maybe I'm just reading way too much into it.
There's currently a trend going on in books where a lot of folklore and mythological stuff from other cultures are retold in fantasy books. And I have encountered at least 2 books about the moon goddess, which is like this magical, powerful person living on and ruling the moon. And it's usually a woman, a queen, or like a sorceress. So I think it's kind of cool that in other cultures, I think it's usually like Asian cultures, that the moon is ruled by a woman. I think that's cool. And it's fitting. I feel like like moon and moonlight and all that comes with the moon, like the light in the dark and stuff, kind of feels caring and nurturing. It's hard to pinpoint, but I definitely get that vibe from the moon.
Go off, queen.
So Feyre looks out the window and waits for any signs of Tamlin returning, but he doesn't. But someone else returns. And that's the big plot twist ending. It's her dad.
It's not her father. No way.
I can't imagine her father taking on this challenge of treading through these woods and crossing this border that is, I don't know, protected by soldiers or somewhat, to go off and come for his daughter.
If that's actually true, that that's her father, he has to have some help, because not only is it hard to get there, I feel like it's impossible to get there unless he's like a master tracker or ranger of some sorts that can track the traces of Tamlin and Fae'd. I don't feel like he could make that there.
I tried to make predictions about what this might be, and I wasn't sure, but I also wrote down maybe it's some sort of disguise of some being or something.
The book told us about Prithian like playing tricks on your mind or something like that.
If it's something evil, it chose a very convenient time to attack in quotation marks. So I think it's something that has been watching Farah for, a while sounds so long. She's been there for, 2 days?
2 days, yeah.
But it's someone who's been watching, because basically the second Tamlin's left, something else comes creeping in. That sounds too calculated to be coincidence. So I think maybe by bringing Farah to Fairyland, Tamlin alerted other people to her presence, and maybe if Farah is actually something important to Prithian, she's the cure or something, someone else wants to have her, and now they sent her father to be like, Farah, come with me, I'm here to save you, and then maybe she's stupid enough to leave with this person, or she's not. We will see next chapter.
Hopefully.
But yeah, I think this is not her dad.
Yeah.
I'm so positive. If it's her dad,
it would be almost impossible. She's been there for 2 days, and it takes way more than 2 days, or at least a bit more than 2 days to even get there, and he doesn't know the way. Yeah, and he's on foot, and
Apparently.
she was on a horseback, and I don't think so. If it's like a shapeshifter, this is conspiracy corner again.
the hands are up.
Whom do we know who can shapeshift? Tamlin. Who knows that Tamlin is gone right now? Tamlin does. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe that's just Tamlin coming back.
Maybe he wants to live out his fatherly urges.
Maybe it's Prithian telling Farah that Tamlin is her dad. He comes in looking like he usually does, but Prithian plays tricks on Farah's mind, and he looks like her dad, and she's like, oh, Dad! And he's like, the fuck?
How do you know?
No, I don't think it's Tamlin. I kind of feel like maybe he gets hurt fighting the Bogge. And if he comes back, he's hurt, and she has to help him. Or she finds him gravely wounded while out with her supposedly dad, who isn't her dad, but something evil. The hands are up.
But it might be that the first sentence in the next chapter is like, oh, never mind, I just didn't see it correctly, and it's not my dad. And we spend 30 minutes.
It's Uncle Josh!
First, when he steps on the clearing, she thinks it's Tamlin returning. And then she says oh no, it's my father. And I was just like, what? Because now these things are so close together. They are practically one. Not yet, but they will be. I'm sure.
I feel like there's a pattern going on with how the chapters work. First, there's a longer chapter dropping all the lore, and then there's a short chapter, and there's usually a lot of talking and not much happening. And now finally, there's some story going on.
Plot
we know
happening.
of something evil, and we know of something that scares even Faye, and now we see her dad, who cannot be her dad, because it's impossible that he's here, and I'm getting excited. The book's finally done it.
Yay!
I hope this plot keeps moving now.
Meike is hooked. Woohoo!
After the last few chapter endings, it was like, ooh, stuff is happening. Oh, just kidding, never mind. Stuff is not happening.
True.
And I hope it just keeps moving. This will be fun. This will be a fun ride.
And if you want to join us on this fun ride, you can do so on Instagram.
At Getting Fae'd Pod.
Or just subscribe to wherever you're listening to us, so you will miss no reveal or conspiracy.
Yeah, and you can also leave a rating and review. Maybe 5 stars. That would be so nice of you.
Please remember, no spoilers. I have been spoiled enough by all the other series I've read.
But if you want to get in touch with feedback or how you pronounce the names, then you can message us on Instagram or leave a review.
That would be nice.
Thanks.
Thanks. You can also tell a friend.
Or your janitor.
Or you can recommend the podcast to your horse servant.
Or your horse, if your horse likes to listen to podcasts.
It might be very relaxing.
If it doesn't, please don't force it.
Be kind to your animals, please.
Yes, thank you.
This is an animal-friendly podcast. We are not forcing any animals to listen to this. Shut up.
Was that Lukas' persona? Are we uncovering things here?
So anyways, if you like this episode, then maybe you can join us next time when we're
Getting Fae'd!